Hey guys, how you doing? My name is Chef Jayon Barnes. Welcome to my kitchen. Today, we're making gumbo, one of my favorite things of all time. With me being from New Orleans, my grandmother taught me how to make gumbo as a little bitty boy. Want to know what's in gumbo? Stay tuned, we'll be right back. All right, let's go through the ingredients. Today we have chopped scallions, diced celery, diced peppers, cut up chicken, blue crab, melted butter, diced red onions, diced tomatoes, andouille sausage, 3140 shrimp. That's how many in a pound, so this is medium-sized shrimp if you're getting this from the grocery store. White wine, chicken broth, all-purpose flour, Cayenne pepper, Blackening Spice, gumbo filet, and chopped herbs. All right, you guys, let's get started. First thing we're gonna do is make a roux. How do you make a roux? A roux, by definition, is equal parts flour and fat. Some people use oil, they're terrorists, don't listen to them. The rest of us, we use melted butter. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm gonna take my melted butter and you're gonna use about 2 cups. I'll put the recipe in the description so you guys will know. You pour it in here, you go like that. Now, this is getting hot. You also pour your flour in just like that. You hear that sizzle? That's what you want. It's hot enough, it's good. And then you take your whisk at first and whisk it around because you want to incorporate the butter as well as the roux. We're gonna let this go for a couple minutes and I'm gonna show you guys a trick. So this is what you want. As you notice, the more I stir, the more it's starting to turn colors. Right now we're at more of a sand color, and eventually you want this to be more like a dark peanut butter brown. Now, once you get your roux to the consistency of this, you can then come back with a spatula and you can work the bottom of the pan because you don't want it to burn. Now, most important, when you're making a roux, you cannot do anything else. You can't take a phone call. You can't check on anything else in the oven. Your whole life is making this roux. Because as you see, while I'm talking, this is getting darker and darker. And you know you're on the right track when it smells like burnt popcorn. However, you don't want to burn it. Now, if you have any questions about this, send me a message in the comments. I can respond back, or I'll put my email in there as well. But as you can see, look at that. It's turning really quick. Now, this is on a gas top burner. If you guys are cooking this at home on an electric, it will not be as fast, but you kind of get an idea of what's going on. And look at that. In the 30 seconds I've been talking, it's already gone. So we'll set this to the side. And this is the color that you want. A nice, dark peanut butter brown is what I would call it. Now that we have the roux out of the way, it's time for the actual gumbo. Let's get started. We're gonna start with a little bit of oil. It's about 2 ounces. I'll put that in the description box. And then we're gonna start first with our andouille sausage. What you wanna do, you wanna hear that sizzle. That's what you want. you only want to stir for a minute or so, and then we'll come back and add our chicken as well. And incorporate that as well. And before you add the chicken, let's go ahead and add another teaspoon of blackening spice. If you notice, we're not adding any salt whatsoever because the chicken broth will be salty enough that way you won't need to do it. So you're gonna add 2 tablespoons, be pretty generous on the chicken. And the reason is, there's nothing worse than eating gumbo and the soup tastes good, but then the actual chicken and the vegetables have no flavor to it. So that's what you want. You know, you want this to be a very flavorful dish. We're gonna stir this up and let it go. And while you're stirring this up, you want the chicken to cook about halfway through before you add the next step, which would be the wine. Again, let the chicken cook halfway through and then add the wine to it. Then we're gonna add some minced garlic to it. We're gonna add 2 tablespoons. We'll stir it, incorporate it in there. Now we'll add wine. We add 1 cup of wine. And what the wine does is deglazes the whole mixture. See? Rinses off the bottom of the pan, cools the pan down, and gives you a nice little idea of what's going on. We'll let that reduce by half. And if we added 1 cup, we want it to reduce down to a half a cup. And we'll let that do that right now. So we pretty much good. Turn this down a little bit. Then we'll throw a little bit of herbs in there. Yeah, that'll help out. Stir this up a little bit. Make sure it's nice and incorporated. So far, so good, right? This is what you want. So now that the chicken is cooked halfway, we are going to now add our chicken broth to the gumbo. Pour it just like that. Slow and steady wins the race, right? Slow and steady. So I just added exactly 4 cups of chicken broth. And again, the recipe will be in the description, so don't worry about that. 4 cups of chicken broth. We want to stir and make sure everything is incorporated. We're going to let this simmer for about 20 minutes, and then we'll be right back. Once we let this simmer, then we're gonna add our roux, followed by our seafood, because the biggest issue with cooking seafood, as I always say, is overcooking it. So let's add our roux first. To do that, this is what we're gonna do. So this is a dark roux, almost, past chocolate, and this is what we wanna add to it. And this will give the gumbo the color and the flavor that we're looking for. Now, again, I'm a classically trained chef, so I kind of walked the line a little bit on making the roux this dark. For those at home, I recommend once you get to like a peanut butter color, I recommend you stop. For me, I walked the line a little bit. That's why the roux looks really, really dark. But again, I walked the line of making a dark colored roux without burning it, as you can see from the color. So you want to stir the roux in slowly and give it a chance to thicken, because you're adding basically flour and butter to the pot. So as you're stirring it, you want to make sure that the consistency of this pot is a little bit thicker than broth, but not as thick as a gravy. And you kind of want to walk that line, and that's the definition of true gumbo. So as I'm stirring, I am checking to see, and I like the consistency. As you can see, that roux made for a rich mahogany brown color, which is what I was going for. So when you make gumbo, this is about how you want it. You want it, again, a little bit thicker than a soup, but not as thick as gravy. So this is about how you want it. You do want it kind of watery from a consistency standpoint. That's what you want. Okay? So now we add that, let's add everything else to it. So now at this point, we are gonna add our shrimp. Woo, let's get it popping. And now we'll add our blue crab, which is a little bit sweeter than snow crab, and it's more indigenous to New Orleans style gumbo. And then we're gonna add tomatoes. Then we'll add green onions. Then we'll add our herbs. I want you to be generous. I want you to give me 2 tablespoons over the top. That's gonna do a couple of things. For presentation, it's gonna be great, and then also it adds this kind of aromatic, herby flavor to the gumbo. So then you come back and you stir all that goodness in there. You're gonna give it a good stir. Incorporate all the ingredients. So now that I've added all the ingredients, if you notice, I did not add okra. That's because when I make gumbo in large quantities with okra, on day 2 or 3, it tends to make the mixture slimy. So instead of okra, I'm going to add gumbo filet, which you should add anyway. But gumbo filet is a thickening agent from the sassafras tree. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons to this, like so. And then you want to stir this up and let this simmer. And before you know it, you'll have a thickened version of gumbo. Now, you don't want this as thick as gravy, but you do not want it as thin as soup. So you want it in between that, okay? And let's see how that goes. We'll let this simmer for 20 minutes and we'll be right back. So as you guys can see, the gumbo mixture is looking good. You have a rich brown sauce. The crabs have turned color. We are almost ready. You do not want your gumbo no thicker than this. Again, it's just thicker than soup, but just not as thick as gravy. And this is kind of how you want your gumbo. That's what you want. Just like that. So last step, I'm gonna add 1 more tablespoon of chopped herbs, just to give it that appearance and kind of give it that earthy flavor. I'm gonna stir it up, and when we come back, it's time to plate. You ready to plate? I know I am. Bruh. Now it's time for my favorite thing to do in the world. It's plating. So to show you guys how to plate, as I always say, you want to plate from the middle of the plate. And how to do that, I'll show you right now. What you want to do is, you can do this 1 or 2 ways. You can take a spoon and just lump it on there, or, you know, I'm a chef, I'm gonna be a little creative, and I am going to take a measuring cup with some rice. I'm gonna pack it down nice and tight, and then I'm gonna flip it over like that. And it gives you a base to play with, you know, something nice, something cool, right? So I am going to take my ladle, and I am going to ladle all the goodies around the rice. Kind of like a little bit of moat full of seafood, chicken, and vegetables. That's kind of what you want. Just like that. Now I am going to sheet a little bit, and this is good. cheat a little bit. Make this a little bit more hearty around there. So we'll put seafood shit around there. Take, add seafood there, and then take a napkin and we want to wipe our plate just like that. Nice and tight, nice and clean. You want the focal point to be on the plate. That's what you want. And again, this is for my cooks at home. So we want to learn how to plate. This is how you do it. So everything's nice and even in the middle. Everything's good. All right. Then take our claws. Just place them on there. Be strategic about it. Then we'll take a big boy, set them right on top. Let them be the star of the show. And add it just like that. So now you have the proper amount of chicken, sausage, and shrimp. And then we make sure he stays on top. And now we are almost done. The last thing that we need to do is garnish. So we'll take our parsley herb mix and we'll just come right on top with it. Just like that. Okay guys, as you can see, we're ready to go. It's time to eat. You love the height, the flavor, the colors. One note, I use yellow rice instead of white rice because I love the depth of flavor that yellow rice adds. Of course, white rice, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to use brown rice, that's fine too. So, I'm sorry, I got hungry as I look down. So, this is what I got, this is what I want you to do. Try this recipe at home. If you have any questions, send me an email or drop me a note in the comment section. But again, this is my gumbo. You can't have this one, or maybe you can. But signing off, Chef Jayon. See you later. Over and out. This is mine.